So let's wrap all this finance, bring it around to something that I found out this week. Because I was kind of curious. I had reached out to the county commissioners with Allegheny Woods shutting down. What would our loss in taxes be?
Which was sad because there was a lot of employees that were affected by that.
Yes. Now, they have not got back to me yet. They said it'll take a while to figure out. But when I started thinking, I'm like, okay, let's use small numbers. But let's say that they had $500,000 worth of equipment. Now, I know that's probably really small, because you're talking not even equipment. You're talking their lumber is taxed, their buildings, all that. But let's just say $500,000. And I got thinking, I'm like, what happens to the levy then? Mm-hmm. Because that's a loss. So
we'll explain that. So the numbers that were put out for the levy were based on projected numbers.
Well, I didn't know that. So I called Jerry Hours to find out, is it set that it's whatever it is?
9.9
Let's just say $10 million to keep them round. Is it set that it's $10 million and that's what gets taken out? And if a business closes, then the extra businesses and taxpayers have to pick that up to make the $10 million? Mm-hmm. Like, how does that work? And he says, no, it goes on a percentage. So it is 27%. I think it's 27%. I think so.
Of what?
I could be wrong. That's what the school levy is right now. He said, so if, the Allegheny Wood closes, then that $500,000 is less money that is taxed.
Correct. They're out of business.
Yes, because it's out of business. There's not tax dollars anymore. Now, because there's lawsuits and everything else going on right now, I doubt property tax is being paid on the business at all because the banks are trying to get their money. They want their $40 million. So I know there's frozen accounts and things like that.
That'll be a long drawn out.
Yeah, that'll be long drawn out.
Okay,
but the tax burden still, if it's not paid, and I'm sure it's more than $500,000.
Yeah, but just keep it simple.
$500,000 is what they pay. So that means that less amount comes in on the levy.
Okay, so let me repeat this. The projected levy amount that was put together was based off of projections of existing property value, businesses that are in business, what they pay now. It was projected that the levy would be $10 million.
Yes.
You're saying a business goes out and
a fairly, like me, it would be a blip on, no one would even notice it.
Yeah.
But when you're talking Allegheny Wood.
Well, they're a very large business.
Very large business.
So let's say the taxes, we're speaking hypothetically, go from $10 million to $9.5 million now.
Yes.
So what do they do? What do they cut out of the levy?
Yeah. Do they cut out the stage for Union?
Yeah.
Which they went up there and told Union, if you don't vote for this levy, you don't get your new stage. So you have $50,000 or $500,000 less or whatever. Yeah. What gets cut out? Yes. Do we all not get to get in for free to the games? Are you going to eat that? Are you only going to put $2 million into this monstrosity front bulletproof whatever?
They didn't say bulletproof.
Oh, they didn't say bulletproof. Just safe school. Okay,
yeah,
safe schools.
I've done research on bulletproof.
Which is another thing that we're going to have.
Yeah, I've done a lot of research.
So what happens then? But then I got thinking, wait, what if they took in more
than they projected?
What happens to that money? Where does that go?
We're going to find out when we go.
Well, that's what we hope. Because all this stuff, I mean, it just started rolling. And I was like, well, if they could take in less, they could take in more. What if, some business expanded or more businesses opened this year, and now you have more tax revenue, and they've taken in another $100,000. Where did that $100,000 go to?
So you reach out to our assessor, to verify that we're just not crazy.
Yes, because I had to ask him that question. He's supposed to be getting me numbers on what we're actually losing with them shutting. So I'm still waiting on the commissioners, but I asked him too, so I'm trying to hit it from both sides so we can get that number.
So here's a question. To me, I would think that, and I think we were told it was wrong, but I would think that if I said we're going to spend $10 million, I would think that I would increase the tax rate on others to make up the loss of the $500,000. That's what I would think.
That was my thought, but he said no.
Okay.
He said it's 27% of whatever comes in.
So you pay your amount no matter what.
Yes.
So if, let's say, God forbid, Dominion Power went out, you don't have to pay 90%, do you?
Well, no, they would take a huge loss.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mitch said in an interview maybe a year or two ago,
60% is like, what was
of the last levy is like $5 million.
Yeah.
And here's a question for union: if $5 million comes from a union business, why isn't $5 million spent in union? FYI, I told that to one of the basketball coaches.
What they say?
Yeah, good luck. Yeah, okay. But yeah, I mean, but that's a good question. So we're digging in to find that out because I have no clue what that means.
Because I'm sure, I mean, it's your best guess
it's
of what's going to come in.
Or we call it guesstimation in business.
And also, I have questions on, and this is just why we're looking into it. We're not accusing anyone of doing anything. It's just questions that we have that I would like answered. So, like a church, if someone gives $10 to missions, that $10
has to be used for missions.
Has to be used for missions.
Understood.
Okay. So they budgeted, I don't remember the number, but let's say it was $1 million to pave the parking lot. I don't think it was, but let's say it was $1 million to pave the parking
Keep talking,
lot.
I'll
And
find
that's
out.
what the tax was that they said. If it costs $1.5 million, are they allowed to dip into the extra levy money to pay for that? Or do they have to stick to the $1 million budget? So that's kind of another question that I have. Because, the price of things are constantly fluctuating.
All the time.
It could be cheap this year. Next year you go to build and it could be 20% increase. Or next year you go to build and it could be 20% less. And so that's another question.
School paving was $935,000.
I was close.
That was based on this document came from Grant County Board of Education, 2021 to 2025.
So my question is, what if it only cost $900,000?
Yeah.
What happens to the rest of that money? Are they allowed to use that for anything in the levy? Is it like a church where if you say this is what you're using that money for, it has to be used to that exact amount? I mean, when we've taken up collections to give to Kentucky.
Yeah.
And all that money that came in and went to Kentucky
had to go to Kentucky.
We had to give to Kentucky.
Yeah.
It wasn't, we're going to keep this little bit back and use it for local missions here.
I think at the end of the day, we sent 2 truckloads, M&M Trucking, Transportation or Trucking.
Yeah.
Did a great help. Great. They sent a truck. We filled up a truck, and then we had cash donations. I think we sent. I think
6,000.
That's right. I was going to say $5,000-6,000.
Yeah, 6,000 there. But we had
to send a check,
send the whole thing. Yeah. So that's a question that we hope maybe we can get answered when we go.
It has to be used.
Yeah. How does it go? What if it's more? Do they have to come up with that money someplace else? So that's a little bit about
how your tax dollars are being
spent. What inflation has done, how it's hurting people that are making, really they're making less money now than they were because of inflation. That's what it boils down to.
Correct. And it's everywhere. It's just not Grant County. Unfortunately, it's nationwide. It's a big issue. Question for you. Let me test your memory. And I agree.
Okay.
Okay, the year is
1975. I was 3 years old.
1995.
Okay. Well, that's near your graduation date.
Correct. And one presidential candidate said, no new
taxes.
What? And that may have been, I don't know if that was his first run or second run. Who was that presidential candidate?
George Bush.
Which one?
The senior.
Yeah. And so it may have been he won the first time in 1990,
on no new taxes,
1992 or whatever.
Yeah,
he didn't want new taxes, and he won.
Yes.
And then what did they say when he tried to run again?
He raised the taxes.
Correct.
And he lost.
I think the Democratic Party said that was their thing. No new taxes. Like, don't trust this guy. So yes, I mean I've had some people say, was it really Republican not to like taxes, or not Republican because so many people are rhinos? Is it really conservative not to?
Yes.
And I said, listen, it's not that we don't want to pay taxes. I pay a lot of taxes, It's at, I don't want to pay more than I need to because I don't trust the government.
Yeah.
You know.
Listen, if the government was well, it was, remember, this was probably around that time when we found out that it was like $1,000 for a screwdriver.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like,
toilets and yeah.
Yeah, it's like, okay. I mean, you're hosing the tax people.
And so that's okay though. So let me just say, when you say that we're audited and we're okay, for them to pay $1,000, it was a toilet or something.
Yeah. Their auditing checked out.
Yeah, and that's okay.
Yeah.
So an audit has nothing to do with wisdom.
That just means that you have a receipt for what you bought, and you bought it from the proper vendor.
And they were the cheapest vendor who were selling you whatever.
Well, I don't know what the amount is on
That's
that,
true.
if it's just
That's
building
true.
projects or, like, I don't know if they, because here would be my thing. If they were buying the stuff for the homeless students, which doesn't mean they're without a home. We did find, I was like, how are we counting homeless students?
Most homeless people are not homeless.
Yeah,
Just so
but
you
that
know how
means
it's,
if
how it's verified.
it was something like grand families are actually considered homeless students.
Was it?
Yes, I believe.
I didn't catch
on
that.
Yeah, because they're not growing up in the environment that they were supposed. It was a weird definition,
Okay.
and I could be wrong on that.
Well, listen, grand families are a massive issue
Yes.
in West Virginia.
But it was. I totally lost what we were.
You were saying that. Oh God, now.
Yeah, I got on the grand families.
Hold on.
When they bought the stuff from Amazon.
Well, they didn't buy it from the cheapest if they bought it from Amazon.
Well, so that's my question.
Yeah.
Is there a certain dollar amount where they have to buy? Because you go to Costco, you might be able to buy toothpaste cheaper than you can Amazon.
Yeah.
I mean, Amazon, some things are cheaper. Some things are. Some things aren't.
Yeah.
You know, I'm very careful with the pool. I view the pool is taxpayers' dollars.
No, I understand.
Taxpayers' dollars. Ever since I've taken over, I have ran that like it is not my money. It is taxpayers' dollars. I shop all around to make sure I get the cheapest stuff that I shouldn't say the cheapest, the least expensive stuff.
How about the best value?
So you could probably get it cheaper some places than buying it all from Amazon.
Yeah.
So that's the question. Is it a certain dollar amount? Is it just building projects that they have to get a bid on? Like when they bought the Chromebooks, did they have to get a bid on them?
Yeah.
I was listening to, if you have hours to waste, I was listening to some of the past Board of Education meetings. And one of them was talking about Chromebooks and how the Chromebooks hadn't showed up and they had already cut the check. And this was like weeks and weeks and weeks later. They're waiting on it. It just didn't show up.
That doesn't surprise me, though, because when COVID hit, it wasn't just Petersburg or Grand County.
Shortages everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, everyone was trying to figure out how do we educate kids, which wasn't effective. How do we educate kids? Because we saw their scores drop during COVID. I mean, that was tough. I'm sure hindsight's always 20/20.
But I'm saying, like, on a massive purchase like that, when you're buying Chromebooks for every kid, did that had to be bidded? Was that like bid out? That they had to find the cheapest Chromebook vendor?
They probably bought them direct.
I don't know. But so it's questions like that where I might have been able to save an extra $100,000 by buying them here.
Or are they buying from their friend who lives in town to give their friend $50,000 or whatever?
But there's also an approved vendor list. I did find something out about that. There was certain vendors that you had to spend money with. You couldn't go outside of that also, which to me just sounds a little crooked.
What's an approved vendor mean, though?
The state approves a vendor.
So what do you need to get approved?
I don't know. I looked online, tried to find that out, tried to find how do you become it. And what it seems to me is, there's a bus manufacturer in West Virginia. And we're going to let you test out these electric buses. But guess what? When you go to buy a bus, you have to buy from this vendor because they're the approved vendor.
Yeah. Well, that's the economics.
Yeah, that's the
economics
side.
of taxes.
Yep.
Why you're paying more today than you did 4 years ago. So while this, if you vote yes, and that's okay, but just remember.
Here's what the one great thing about this is democracy.
Yeah.
Highest vote count's gonna win. So if it happens, we have to eat the extra. Businesses raise their costs.
Mm-hmm.
People. We didn't talk about the price of rent. Rent is so high because property tax is now more expensive on houses because of the levy.
I didn't do any research on what those numbers are.
Oh, it's got to be. I mean, I would say it's higher than 20% increase would be my guess. would
I
be
know
my
that
guess.
one building that I had a friend renting downtown. The landlord switched it from 500 to here. I can tell you because I have the text. The building was switched from 500 a month to 650.
Okay. So what percent increase is that?
5 to 6. That's 30%.
30% increase.
Yeah.
Okay. That's above inflation.
Yep. Rent's gonna be 650. Yep.
Yeah.
And now
So
they're
this
paying
is-
500 now. Now it's gonna be.
So this was
650.
what we're saying. So now that person that's renting has less money. Now, let's say that the person renting, though, doesn't have to pay property tax because the owner eats it. So when the property tax goes up, the
Your
owner
rent goes
passes it on to the person.
Yeah. The owner doesn't eat it.
Yeah, well,
The
yes.
owner accepts it as a expense called personal tax in your P&L, and they increase their pricing to offset that. And like we said earlier about Walmart, they also tack on a few more percentages
Yes, yeah.
to make. If we're going up, let's
because
go up.
what was the levy? The levy is like
Oh, so
point
It's a small percentage.
0.02%, but that was a 30% hike.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I don't begrudge anyone making money. That's fine. We're just trying to tell that when there's inflation, when there's extra taxes, businesses are going to get theirs. So that's it for today. Explore Grant County. Vote what your conscience and what your wallet says. That's all we can do. See you
I
later.
don't have to pay your bills. You do.
That's true. Take it easy.